I've had to turn on the big light in the room because the light is rapidly going, but it is that time of year. Oh, hello, my name is Sophie and welcome back to my channel. I started introducing this like a TikTok, which meant there was no intro. Either way, yeah, we've got conflicting lighting. It's yellow back there but blue over here because the sun sets in like 10 seconds now. Even though I have set my 10 before the end, and essentially that is my December TBR, I feel like I still need to make a December TBR because I still have all of my categories to fulfill. And this is the first month where I don't have to read a Famous 5 book. This is the month where I just kind of read as much as I possibly can to get through all of the leftover books I wanted to read this year. So let's do that. Starting off with my wedding book club book for this month. TLDR, when my husband and I got married, we asked our guests to gift us a copy of their favourite books, so we'd have a little library of our favourite people's favourite books. In an endeavour to read them all, I started a book club in as much of a way that you can start a book club other than just picking up a book, and we take it in turns each month to choose a book, and generally I read it and he doesn't. This month was his turn to choose, and he definitely just picked the shortest one he could find that we hadn't already read. So this month he has chosen Midnight Express by Billy Hayes with William Hoffer. I know for a fact that he has no idea what this is about because he probably would have chosen something fictional if he had, but I believe this is a non-fiction memoir. The summary reads, for Billy Hayes, 1970 was a horrifying year. It was the year when he tried to smuggle 4 pounds of hashish from Istanbul back to his home in America. It was the year when he was arrested at Istanbul airport, tried and sentenced to 30 years in Turkish jail. For 5 years he suffered the filth, brutality and degradation of imprisonment in an environment of hellish squalor, while his family fought in vain to secure his release. Finally, in desperation, he made a daring escape bid, and incredibly the bid succeeded. This is the astounding true story, told in Billy Hayes' own words, of those 5 years of living hell and of the harrowing ordeal of his time on the run. Vivid, realistic, without being morbid, it's a classic story of survival and human endurance, told with humour, intelligence and total honesty. When was this released? First published in Great Britain by Andre Deutsch Limited in 1977. This was reprinted in 1983, I think. The people in this book are real, however, in some cases names and other identifying characteristics have been changed. This is like a proper old-time... Oh, was I out of focus the whole time? I'm very sorry. This book, it feels like an old book, and it's not something I ever would have picked up of my own accord, and I'm interested to find out about this person I'd never heard of before. I don't read a lot of non-fiction. Very rogue pick, not particularly seasonal, but that's where I'll be starting this month. Then we move on to my new release, because I don't have to read anything for most of this year. I've been doing what I'm calling a subsidiary wedding book club challenge, and that involved reading a box set of Famous 5 books, and I finished that box set last month. So this is the first month this year where I don't have a Famous 5 book on my TBR, and I'm very excited about it. So we get to move straight on to the new releases that I've pre-ordered. Though I said new releases, it's only one new release. I have pre-ordered the sequel to The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzon, A Monsoon Rising, but I haven't read The Hurricane Wars, so both of those books are on my TBR. We have The Hurricane Wars, which I will read to catch up on, and then be able to read Monsoon Rising. I'm hoping I'll be able to start this at the end of November, just to get a little bit of a kickstart on December, but we'll see how successful that is. So this represents 2 books, but it is physically 1 book. I heard very mixed things about this book. Most of my opinions on the books I read before I go in does come from social media, but there's also a healthy amount of skepticism because reading is so subjective. Even if everyone hated a book that I'm reading, that doesn't mean I won't like it. I won't hate it because everyone hates it. Yeah, I know this is Star Wars fan fiction, and one of the criticisms I saw is that it doesn't quite make sense without the context of Star Wars, so I'll be interested to see what the world building's like. But this cover, I just couldn't resist this cover. It's just stunning, and I believe the edition of Monsoon Rising that I've pre-ordered has sprayed edges, so you know I'm a sucker for sprayed edges. Then we can move straight on to my 3 books from my 24 and 2024. So basically what I would normally do is I would use a spinner to choose out of my remaining TBR, out of my remaining 24 and 2024 to decide which 3 I'm reading. but because I've got my 10 before the end, and I put my 10 before the end in an order because I am a planner reader rather than a mood reader, so I've just picked the first 3 on my planned order of reading my 10 before the end. I hope that makes sense and doesn't sound too psychotic. First of those is another non-fiction book, actually, Strong Female Character by Fern Brady. I've been desperate to read this book since I picked it up earlier this year, end of last year. Ever since I bought it, I've been desperate to read it, but I haven't made the time or prioritised it. I've also heard that this is fantastic as an audiobook because it's narrated by Fern herself, as most memoirs I think tend to be. So I'm almost certainly going to pick this up as an audiobook. It's not too long, and I'm really excited to read about a successful woman with autism who knew she was autistic and isn't like afraid of it. So afraid of it is the wrong term. I think a lot of people are hesitant to be associated with the label, and she's plastered it all over the blurb of this book. As someone who has their own autism assessment in January, I think this is going to be the kind of empowering book I need to read. So that's book number 3. Then we have some Alice Oseman, hopefully my first book outside of the Heartstopper series if I get around to reading it. We have Radio Silence. I don't actually know anything about this book, I just know that Alice Oseman wrote it, and it doesn't link to any of the Heartstopper characters, but I believe all of Alice Oseman's books are set in the same universe. This is a YA contemporary book about a girl called Frances who is a study machine with one goal. Nothing will stand in her way, not friends, not a guilty secret, not even the person she is on the inside. Then she meets Aled, and for the first time she's unafraid to be herself. So when the fragile trust between them is broken, Frances is caught between who she was and who she longs to be. Now she knows that she has to confront her past, to confess why Caris disappeared. Frances is going to need every bit of courage she has. Engaging with themes of identity, diversity and the freedom to choose, Radio Silence is a tour de force by the most exciting writer of her generation. I wholeheartedly agree. This is another one I believe I already have the audiobook for, so hopefully I'll be able to listen to this one too. And then last but by no means least, we're back into the realm of fantasy, Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong. I bought this last year purely because I saw that this particular signed edition had a little love heart on the signing, and I was like, oh wow, okay, Chloe Gong must have done that on all the books, or that would be weird and this would be special. And I took that as a sign to buy it because I checked the copy underneath and it didn't have a heart, so I decided that this book was destined for me. That's a very poor reason to buy a book, but it's the one I chose that day. This is another book that's been described as Hunger Games-esque. It's got an element of challenge, but I think the magic system involves being able to jump between people's bodies. Inspired by Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra. Not that I know that much about Antony and Cleopatra. It's a fiery collision of power plays, spilled blood and romance amidst a set of deadly games. Having been a Hunger Games fan in my teenage years and having read Powerless last month, which is also a very heavily Hunger Games inspired book, why not add another one to the list? And I know this one has a sequel either coming out soon or that has just been released, so it feels like a good time to read it so that I don't have to do what I'm doing with the Hurricane Wars and panic read it before I get the sequel. So there's that. I suppose this was the easiest TBR I've had to make this year because I've already made my 10 before the end, so I basically just picked 6 of the books from that 10. Well, 5 of the books from that 10 plus one that's a pre-order. December TBR. I do also have a couple of Christmas books on my list that I'm hoping to read. When am I going to get time to read all of these? That's a very valid question. I'm not sure, but we're going to try our best. At this point in time, it's just before the end of November's not quite finished yet, and I'm currently reading 2 books that are on my November TBR, and I have 1 book that I'm yet to start from my November TBR, and there's part of my brain that still thinks I'll be able to finish the 2 books I'm currently reading and read 1 more by Saturday when the month ends. Who knows? I'll be posting my November wrap-up next week, and honestly, the fact that November seems to have gone incredibly slowly, and also I can't believe we're nearly in December, so it's going slow and fast simultaneously, but I have managed to read like a machine, well, more than usual this month, so I think that fuels my generally undeserved optimism about how much I'm going to be able to read in December. But these 6 books are going to be my priority. I also have the other 5 books on my 10 before the end, and because I am a planner, not a mood reader, I have put them in an order of what I'm going to read when. But that's that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've had a great reading month and you have some exciting books lined up on your own December TBR if you make monthly TBRs. But either way, I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're reading a great book. Greek book? Great book. You don't exclusively have to be reading a Greek book. I hope you're reading a great book, and I'll see you next time for another bookish video. Bye!